So I switched to the iPhone 16 Pro from the iPhone 16 Pro Max in this white titanium color. And in this episode, I want to share with you what I learned after doing that. So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. Now, I want to be very clear with you. I brought both the Pro here and the Pro Max, which is in a case right here, on day one. And while I love the Max and I've been using them for years, I recently welcomed a newborn into the family. And the weirdest thing has been happening. I got really busy with, dad duties and stuff like that. And basically what had happened is I've been dropping the Max a lot. Yeah, I don't like dropping my phone, even though I have a case on it. I've been dropping it a lot, and it's mostly due to its size. I just find myself like messing around with it. I'm doing something else, and it just drops and drops and drops. So I figured, I have a 16 Pro that I was reviewing on the channel. Let me go ahead and swap my eSIM, see how that goes, and see if this size is good. Now, I was really liking tracking a lot of stuff here on the larger screen, the long battery life, which got me through, multiple days easily, and long nights. But right here with the iPhone 16 Pro, right here, I've been finding it to be, I think, a sweet spot. But there's some things I don't like, but I'll tell you about those. Just stay tuned here. So the first 3 days coming from the iPhone 16 Pro Max over here to my 16 Pro, it definitely felt small, and I was kind of already thinking, what did I do? I should just go back to it. Who cares? But then I wanted to give it more of an experiment, more of a test to see, can I adapt to its smaller size, and does it really make a massive difference? And I was kind of shocked that the 6.3 has been very good as well. Now, somebody in my comments said that the 16 Pro Max or the 16 Pro felt tiny by comparison to this. I wouldn't go that far. I would say it feels more medium size, whereas this feels like the large size, just like you would get like a small French fry, a medium fry, a large fry. This is the medium right here. You get what I'm saying? But definitely the first thing that I really have enjoyed about the Switch is because of its size, it's easier to keep in the hand. It actually eliminated my dropping problem when I'm busy. I haven't dropped it. It just wraps around my hand. Now, again, this is going to be based on your hand size. I got a pretty big hand, but even my big hand with the iPhone 16 Pro Max, it can get a little bit easy to drop certain times. Of course, a grippy case with really strong grips on the side could solve that as well, but I don't want to buy another case right now at the moment. This one right here, though, just even without a case, I just don't drop this phone, knock on wood. Hopefully I don't do that and jinx myself right now, but definitely it's been pretty good there. I also have been loving its weight difference. It feels much lighter to hold than the iPhone 16 Pro Max, and that makes it feel more of a joy for the day-to-day experience. But what I really like is that while you have this lighter weight feel, it also doesn't change your day-to-day, power that you get, your day-to-day OLED screen, your day-to-day promotion. You have all the same specs and stuff packed into the 16 Pro as the Pro Max. So it made it feel like a really nice, smaller powerhouse phone that just kind of feels right in the pocket, doesn't feel huge in the pocket. It's pretty great, actually. So another thing that I learned is coming from the iPhone 16 Pro Max, of course, it's going to be easier to reach the control center. It's going to be easier to reach things. But because they stretch the bezels on this phone right here, I have found that the 16 Pro is still harder to reach things now than the older 6.1 phones. In addition, much harder to reach than like a 20:9 aspect ratio. It has a wider 19:9 aspect, but the bezels being stretched makes the screen wider. Now, I like that because it feels like you're holding a little large phone, like a littler size, but a large screen. But it also feels like you can't reach things as easily. So you still have to kind of move your thumb around. And a lot of times I'm still kind of like using it like this. So I think for a lot of people, this is still going to be a two-hand phone for safety reasons not to drop it. But if you have a large hand, this will be very easy to manage day to day for sure. I learned that this phone, I kept thinking about like my older XS Max. I feel like it feels like a tweener size in between like the iPhone 16 Pro Max and an old XS Max. It's kind of like somewhere in between there, but a little bit closer to the older Max. So you basically have a phone that kind of feels like a large screen of the past, but crammed into a smaller, more compact body of a 6.1. It really is a really nice experience because of that. Again, if you want the large, like phablet style screen though, you're not going to be impressed or love the 16 Pro, but that's just something I wanted to share with you that I learned after using it. One thing that's a little bit of a con to me that I've been noticing is that I tend to look at the dynamic island more. I think it's because it's a smaller display. I just tend to, I see it more. My eyes just looking at it more. I'm not a fan of that. I do feel like the media or reading experience as well as the, video watching experience is better on the Max. I can still do all my day-to-day stuff, but I just find that because it's smaller, the dynamic island sticks out more to me. So that's just something not a major fan of. But again, this screen is still more than enough to consume all the stuff you're going to consume on a phone, your quick searches. But I did find myself reaching for a tablet or a monitor, like going on my PC, laptop, something like that, more than I did with the 16 Pro Max. So this phone still kind of has that traditional, it's a smartphone in your pocket feel, whereas the Max, you might not even want to use your tablet often. That's how big the screen is. So for sure, I definitely felt that way. However, I would say that I actually edited a video the other day for the channel on this phone, and while I did kind of regret it after, it was a little cramped, it did the job. It was for my second channel, the A55 review. If you haven't checked it out, you can go check it out on my second channel. But I edited the entire video here on LumaFusion, and it did the job. It actually rendered this video basically as fast as like a Mac did. So I was pretty impressed with that. And the screen was fine. The battery, this phone didn't heat up either. The 16 Pro did not overheat or anything like that, even under a full video edit. So it was pretty impressive. Now, when it comes to the typing experience, hey, this is okay and easy to use with one hand, but a little more challenging if I'm not swiping. So if I'm like just typing, I kind of don't feel super safe doing that. It's still kind of like a two-thumb experience, which I think is kind of nice because it kind of feels like a pretty good size keyboard, but it definitely doesn't have that more compact feel of the 15 Pro, I feel like, or even some of the older Pro models. It just feels a little bit bigger and kind of is reaching into that territory of two-hand usage more often. I will say that when we go ahead and turn on landscape mode, it feels a little small. I don't really use this phone much at all in landscape. I actually found myself using the 16 Pro Max a little bit more in landscape, but not this one. So this goes back to mostly portrait orientation and usage. So talking about the software experience, I like that, this phone, just like all the other ones, have Apple Intelligence, all the new 16s. I just find myself enjoying, every time I come back to experiment on a smaller iPhone, I find myself enjoying the experience of iOS on a smaller device. I feel like it was designed more for a smaller device. Until Apple makes some split screen changes, it just feels like it was meant to be on a one-handed iPhone. I think that goes back to the Steve Jobs era. I don't know. But just because you're always in one app, it just feels right. It has this like nice gesture effect. It just feels like this is the way it was designed. I don't know how else to describe it. Like, I can't get any more simple than that. If they start adding more multitasking abilities, then that will change, but they seem to keep that on the iPads only. So the iPad, one of the reasons I still love using iPads is because they have that iPad OS that allows you to do Stage Manager, split screen. I love that stuff. I actually like that experience more than the iPhone. I wish they would bring some of that stuff to the iPhone, especially the split screen. But until they do that, I'm still loving iOS and the smaller phone, and that's what I thought about the software. Other than that, it has all the same software features. And personally, I haven't been using the customized icon colors lately because I don't like that they're only a dark mode version. I wish they would have a tinted light mode version because during the day, I don't want to see these super dark icons. I only want to see that at night. So I do rock them at nighttime, but during the day, I'm not a fan of those. I do like the automatic dark mode icons, but right now it's daytime. So if we switch them over here to dark mode, you'll see I like that. That's pretty nice. But in terms of the customization, I want to see a light mode tint in the future. But yeah, it's got all the same software enhancements, same features. So kind of just feels like I just went to the same phone. So performance, let's just put it this way. It's ridiculous. This is MacBook level performance on a phone. You'll go over here. Now, can you take advantage of that like a MacBook? If you try. But definitely these benchmarks, they're kind of like an older M series chip in terms of their scores. And some of them are actually more powerful in the single core than an older M series chip. So this thing's a powerhouse. And of course, yes, you can take advantage of it if you do stuff like I showed you earlier. If you start doing editing and stuff, you're definitely pushing that chip in this area. In addition to that, if you want to do you want to do some heavier games, you'll be pushing this chip. So if you push it, you're going to really like it. But do the other phones not perform well? No, they'll do well. The 15 Pro, 15 Pro Max could do this as well. But the difference is the thermal management. This can do this all day without getting too hot, too warm. So this is a much more efficient, more powerful chip. And let's just put it this way, with the ProMotion, with the A18 clocked at 4 gigahertz, 8 gigabytes of RAM, it's a beast. It's got ridiculously great performance. The only thing they could really improve, I think, is, of course, they're going to make the chip faster, but let's add some more RAM. I think it'll make it a better long-term solution if they do that. One thing I don't like is that they still have a 128 gig option, and I'm saying that now because I thought it would be enough, but I kind of regret this. 81 gigs already. I just had this phone for 2 months. Yeah, this is not going to be pretty for me. Long-term, I'm going to be having to offload things off of this thing multiple times a day. So I think Apple should switch, especially on the Pros, to 256 across the board to start, just because Pro users are not people that are going to be putting a couple of apps and taking just a couple of photos. They're going to be loading this thing up. So I think they need to go to 256 on the future Pros to start. Other than that, the USB-C Type 3.2, AirDrop, all that stuff, fast transfers, DisplayPort works well. The new Mac OS where they beam the phone up to the Mac and you could use it on the Mac, that and the Sequoia, that works well as well. But the storage is just too low. But it does give you the lower price point at $999, but still, I think we should start at 256 gig here. One of my favorite things about the iPhone 16 Pro that I learned after using it is I love that they have the same cameras as the iPhone Max. This is one area where I'm like, I don't need to use the Max really. I will say that I do like having a larger screen to frame my photos. It looks a little more smaller here when I'm taking the photo, but from the actual results perspective, I'm getting the same results. So let me show you a few samples here and show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so you can see, taking on the iPhone 16 Pro, same results as the Max. You'll see it doesn't matter. I'm getting Pro level quality right here, no matter if I'm using this or the Max. So it's definitely worth just getting this one if you want a smaller camera experience. It definitely does a good job. In addition, when you are taking a photo, you do have the ability to go the same zoom now. Unlike last year, you can zoom the same distance. So that makes this year's iPhone 16 Pro a better value than last year's 15 Pro because it was the same price, but it had a weaker camera. Didn't like that. So I like this. Definitely is nice. The only thing I don't like is that this phone, because of the smaller battery, if you are doing a lot of video and photo work, you definitely drains much faster when doing heavier video work. So this one I wouldn't pick if you're doing mostly 4K 60 video on a tripod. Get the Max because it'll last longer while you're doing your edits and your shoots. So when it comes to the battery life, I learned that this phone is actually quite impressive. It's actually better than some of the older iPhone Max devices, especially these really old ones. But it was actually better than it was about the same as my 13, I think my 13 Pro Max. It's kind of like the 14 Pro Max, maybe a little better than that one too. So this phone is an easy all-day phone, even for the 6.3-inch size. So don't worry too much about the battery life. Now, if you want that extended use where you're going well into the next day, of course, the Max wins it out here. I do miss the battery. I'm not going to kid you and try to like front and act like I don't miss the battery of the Max. I do. But at the same time, I have not drained this phone in a full day yet since using it. Like I haven't fully drained it where like it died out on me with my type of usage. So to me, the best thing I could say is that I actually think, honestly, if you're not a super heavy user throughout the day, this could go into a second day. But at the end of the day, the battery life is great. On the Max, it's pretty good here, though, on the Pro as well. So it wasn't a deal breaker. That's the most simplest thing I learned about it. It's just it wasn't a deal breaker. It was pretty good, actually. And I was shockingly surprised that it lasted as long as it did. For some actual numbers, you can see 4 hours, 23 screen active. Last time I charged was up to 81% on Sunday at 6:14. It is now Monday, 8:58 a.m. And we do have 38%. So that is pretty good if you ask me. I'm a little bit all over the place with my charging right now, but that's pretty decent length of time for this to be running. Now, I also learned that the audio, you don't have to be afraid of getting like weaker audio on the iPhone 16 Pro just because it's smaller. It performs about the same as the Max which is to say it's very strong and very loud. And also it sounds clear at the highest volume, which other phones struggle with. When you raise them all the way up, they start to get tinny. Not here on the iPhone Pros. When it comes to the phone call quality, we do have really good connectivity strength here, and it's been very quick. I haven't had no major issues. I also noticed very fast Wi-Fi with the Wi-Fi 7, so that was pretty good as well. Bluetooth all pretty fast, so that was decent. So that's what I got to say about that. Now, I learned something. This is just a personal preference, but I tend to prefer the white titanium over the desert titanium just for its classic look. The desert titanium is nice, don't get me wrong, it's the special color this year. But I like, for a longer term option, the black or white titanium, just because they have more of a classic. They kind of remind me of the MacBooks, and they just feel like the ones that will look a little bit more clean for the longer term. As next year, this will be the last year's color. So if you're not a yearly upgrader, the silver option, which is called white titanium, or black titanium, will definitely be the better options, I feel like. So in conclusion, switching to the 16 Pro, it feels like you're buying the more nimble, the more portable, the more easy to manage and live with version of the iPhone 16 Pro Max, while sacrificing almost nothing. That's what I've learned. The only area that I think the Max really makes a difference is for watching extended sessions of video or having extended battery life. Other than that, and it's still small enough where this doesn't beat using a tablet, and it doesn't have split screen. So you're kind of just dealing with the larger size and footprint while paying more for nearly the same exact experience. But that doesn't make the Max bad. It's still, to me, the better phone overall due to its longer battery life and bigger screen. But I don't think that makes the 16 Pro bad. It just makes that the 16 Pro is a really great option as well this year. Unlike last year where we were getting like the weaker camera, there's almost no sacrifice here besides getting the screen that might actually fit your hand better. So after switching to this phone, I got a glimpse into what it's like to really use the iPhone 16 Pro as a user daily. And I gotta say, if you're on the fence about the iPhone Max because you're nervous it might be too big, just go with the Pro. I think you'll be happy. But if you already know that thing is too tiny, Nick, you can't talk me into that small phone. I already know I like the big phone. Well, then get the big phone. I'm not trying to convince you. I'm experiencing what I learned. I'll catch you on the next one. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.